And those of you who are watching this meeting on City 7 to the July 9th meeting of the Independence Planning Commission. Before we begin our meeting, let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with our meetings, it is the responsibility of this commission to hold public hearings and make recommendations to the Independent City Council on matters relating to zoning and land use changes within our city. We also consider and make decisions on plats, special use permits, and other issues, as well as changes in codes and policies that relate to city planning. Our procedure tonight for each case is as follows. First, the applicant will be recognized to speak on behalf of their case, followed by anyone else in attendance that wishes to speak in favor of the matter. Then, those who are in opposition or who have questions regarding the case will then be recognized to speak. If there was any opposition or questions from the public, the applicant will be allowed a rebuttal period to address those concerns and questions, and once the applicant is finished, the chair will declare the public hearing portion of the case closed, and further comment from the public will not be recognized. At this point, the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss the merits of the case with one another, and during this discussion, the commission reserves the right to ask questions of all parties concerned. And then finally, the commission will render a decision in the case. Because this is the only public hearing of the cases on the agenda tonight, all those who wish to speak will be heard. All comments and questions should be addressed to this guy here, the chair, and not directly to the applicant or to city staff. The chair also requests that statements be kept brief and on point, and that if a statement has already been made by a previous speaker, please do not repeat it, but indicate your agreement on the matter as well. Now, to expedite tonight's meeting, the chair asks that everyone who wishes to testify or who believes they may testify, please stand now and be sworn in. Those standing, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, answer, I do. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, do we have any changes on the agenda or?
No, sir.
Okay, so our first case tonight is case number 19-100-08, rezoning of 16113 East Truman Road. The city staff give the report, please.
Mr. Burns seeks to rezone this property at 16113 East Truman Road from C2 General Commercial to C3 Service Commercial for his construction contracting business. The oval shows the location of the site south of Truman Road, west of M291 highway. This is the zoning for the area with the property in the oval. The site is quite noticeable, being the only red C2 zoning in the midst of residential yellow on this segment of East Truman Road. It's not known when the property was rezoned commercial. It's been that way for decades. The applicant also owns the adjoining residential lot to the east. This aerial photo shows the site. The paved area in the oval is the part of the lot that the applicant planned to use for his business. The dark line south of Truman Road, encircling the paved area, is the Spring Branch Creek. The lot lines are slightly askewed. The paved area is on the western lot completely, not on the applicant's eastern lot. Part of the Truman Road right-of-way, as you can see from the photo there, encroaches on the north part of the paved area. Replatting of the lot could remove this excess right-of-way. This is the floodplain shown along Spring Branch Creek and includes a portion of the paved area. Some of this floodplain area could be removed through the floodplain through a flood map amendment. This shows the first order stream of Spring Branch Creek, which encapsulates much of the applicant's property. With the replatting of the lot, the stream buffer could be averaged to the south, allowing use of the paved area. Here we're on the north side of Truman, looking across Truman Road into the site. Okay, now we're on the south side of the road, looking at the eastern part of the paved area. When this photo was taken, there was partial fencing around the area. The Spring Branch Creek is on the other side of the paved area. This is looking southwest into the western part of the site. Generally, the forestation shown around the site is on the south side of Spring Branch Creek. Here we're looking up Truman Road, west. This is the house that sits up on the hill on acreage on the north side of Truman Road, directly across from the site. And here we're looking east down Truman Road. Staff does recommend approval of this application.
Thank you, Stuart. Does any of the commissioners have questions of Stuart? Okay.
Are there any historical perspectives that we should consider?
No, we didn't receive any comments from the Historic Preservation Officer about anything to do with this site.
Any other questions? Okay, could the applicant please come forward? State your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Philip Burns. I live at 1020 Northwest
Mr. Burns,
450.
could you move the microphone up a little bit there?
I live at 1020 Northwest 451st Road in Warrensburg, Missouri. It's out in the country, so this stuff is all new to me.
Sure. We don't bite, so you're okay. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, it looks like, but can you tell me any future plans you might have for the place, or are you just simply going to use it for storage?
Temporarily, I mean, this is the first step in what we want to do, is rezone it so we can utilize it for parking our trucks, which in the picture, there's one old truck, but the rest of them are all very expensive trucks. The ultimate goal is to rezone it, then acquire the building permits after we do the replatting and the surveying, and eventually put a building on the site if we can. And that'll generate, tax dollars for Independence and use it as a base for our company instead of a remote parking lot.
And the purpose of that building would be simply to store your vehicles inside?
Store vehicles. There are no repairs being done aside from tires at the worst. We have somebody come in and they lubricate the trucks. Anything that's done mechanically is done in a shop away from the site. There's not going to be any, things left around. We've actually cleaned it up quite a bit since we've gained ownership of it. It is quite the catch-all for anybody that drives by and dumps things.
Sure.
Aside from that, I mean, we're just wanting to use it for some place for our employees to park their cars, get in a truck. I've explained to Stuart, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name. Most of the time the trucks work 24 hours a day. There are instances they're at the lot for 2 hours, 3 hours here, but typically through the summer months they work 24 hours a day. In the winter months we park them inside the caves and out by Missouri City, keep them out of the weather. Eventually that building would house the trucks in the wintertime instead of the caves. That's where we plan to save a little bit of money. So once we have the building plans and building permits, build a building, then everything will be parked inside. There won't be anything outside except for employee vehicles.
Okay.
You indicated that a future building may become a base of operation. How do you mean that?
Well, we live in Warrensburg. All of our business is in the Kansas City commercial zone area. I can't explain to you how hard it is to drive up here every day. And I may have to make several trips a day because I'm in 3 different businesses, one of which is not my own. So I have to make several trips. I've owned a new pickup for a month. I've got 6,000 miles on it. So eventually we want to make our central locating point here, and then I will probably move somewhere in the area once now our kids are all almost out of high school. So we're looking at ways to keep closer to Kansas City. There's nothing to do in Warrensburg. So
How large do you anticipate this new building being?
Well, if we could originally wanted to utilize the existing pad, we talked to Mike at Public Works, I believe it was, and he said that they would have a way of, I may be telling you the wrong terms, setting aside the flood buffer and just focus on where the floodway would be, and that would, between that and the replotting of the land and taking back some of that easement would be, the biggest it could be is 100 by 50 if we utilize what's there. But we don't need it to be 100 by 50, but you know, if we could utilize that lot, that's what we would do.
Okay. So, like, down the road in the future, since it's a 24-hour business, you do realize that there's some noise ordinances and things like that. I'm not saying that because I see it as being a huge issue. I'm just asking you if you're aware of that.
Yeah, and the trucks we use are all quiet. There are no loud trucks. I mean, even my employee vehicles, most of them are new. There are a couple used ones. But the trucks we use, they're new trucks. You can't alter anything or you void all the warranties. We want quiet trucks, and the loudest thing we have is the backup alarm.
Okay.
So that's,
Well, see, I live a couple blocks away, so if I hear that one night, I know where I'm going to.
well, if we didn't have to have it for safety, we wouldn't have it. But
I understand. That's fine. Does anyone have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
What type of screening do you have in mind for the two sides that they're wanting some screening put up?
I honestly haven't researched into it. Whatever they recommend me to use is what I will use. I mean, it's not a matter of me trying to get by on the cheap end of it. Whatever I need to use, I'm going to use. Because the property's useless without doing this. So, you know, I've taken on the role of buying the property I didn't look at the zoning because in years past, people had parked there, and I didn't understand they were doing it illegally for a long time. The previous property owners didn't maintain it. I mean, when I bought it, it was grown up in trees. It was bad. So the screen fencing I need is whatever that you recommend. I mean, if I need to put in a wooden fence, I'd rather use chain link with the screening in it just for security. But if whatever I need to do, we put up security lights, so the lot is lit at night now. And we need to do it fairly soon so we can at least get some sort of security in there, because yesterday we had a vehicle stolen out of the lot. So.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Yes, Stuart?
Screening for this type of operation, parking of vehicles, is generally, as you suggested or mentioned, 6-foot privacy fence. Potentially on the sides or a portion of the sides, he could go without the privacy part because they're not really visible. One thing we do have to be aware of is this area is in a floodplain, and you have to be careful with fencing in floodplains. As far as the stream buffer and all that goes, once the property is replatted, some of this stream buffer, as you see here, can be shifted to the south, or they call it, I can't remember the term they call it, but there's a term that they use upstairs for this type of thing. And then also the floodplain area could be reduced somewhat through a LOMAR or LOMAR F. They've got some issues with this property, that's why it's been sitting for a while. But that's the situation with it.
Thank you.
How do you mean issues with the property?
Well, this floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
We've had numerous people come in and want to build a building here, auto repair or whatever, and once they saw that it was in the floodway, part of it is in the floodway, some of it's in the floodplain, and then they have the stream buffer. Doesn't leave a lot of room to make it work. You take a lot of effort on the applicant's part to go through and hire engineers and surveyors to tackle this, to remove those obstacles from the development path for this lot.
So the major concern is doing something that would possibly restrict the flow of that?
Well,
Because I'm not that I watch it all the time, but I've not ever seen a problem there.
we certainly understand, and that's why if he did some sort of letter of map amendment, that some of this could go away, could be reduced or even, but there is some floodway along there. I'm not sure how much of that is. That's where the path of the stream actually is. It's not shown here. This is all floodway. This is the area where the flooding could occur in a 100-year flood. Now, FEMA has very busy and they don't have time to update maps all the time. So this could be one of an older map that needs updating now. But if he does the Lomar, this could remove part of this property from the floodplain.
And did I hear you say that this gentleman also owns an adjoining property?
It's the same, it's the property immediately to the east, which is
Yeah.
zoned residential. It's that one, it actually has this, it shows as the same address, but it's the one to the right.
I see that.
And
Okay.
that's either, Spring Branch Creek or Forest and rough terrain. If you've been out there, you can see that. He has not indicated any interest in doing anything, any development on that property.
I mean, if that property was built on, or he wanted to build on it, then it would probably be a bigger issue for the stream to
it would be
butt
tough.
another one.
Yeah. Because first you'd have to cross the stream and then build on the hill. There's a lot of rock in that area as well, so.
Okay. And the security, and I have no idea what type of fence he's thinking of doing, but, and I'm not saying I'm against this or for this, but the security fencing could also be, would we allow like razor wire on top of it, that kind
No,
of thing?
we don't allow any sort of razor wire, barbed wire, concertina wire, anything like that, except around like a utility location, or like out at the armory, places like that need it. But otherwise, no, it's not allowed. We would require a 6 foot, at least 6 foot privacy fence. And what we've seen people do now because there has been complaints about people kicking in wood slats on a privacy fence. Well, what we've seen them do is they put up a chain link fence and then put the wood slats on the outside.
Yeah.
Well, it provides support for the chain link, and the chain link protects the wood and keeps people from getting in. We've seen that a couple times. It seems to work well.
Okay.
And you don't see the chain link.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this case? Okay, is there anyone here who is opposed or who has questions? Okay. I'll close the public hearing portion of this case and ask for any comments, questions, motions. Anything but silence.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
in the matter of case number 19-100-08, rezoning from C2 to C3 at 16113 East Truman Road, I move that we act in favor of that request.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Goldsberry seconds. Last chance for comments. If none are coming, then we'll just ask for you to call for the vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldsberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Chairman Ashbaugh.
Yes, case number 19-100-08, rezoning of 16113 East Truman Road has been approved. Does it go on to council? Or
That's
is
right
it-
now, about 2 or 3 weeks. I'll send him a letter that tells him when that happens.
Okay. Well, good luck to you, sir. You're welcome. Okay, the next item on our agenda is case number 19-175-03, UDO Amendment Number 39, Industrial District Setbacks.
Good evening. The city proposes amendment number 39 to the Unified Development Ordinance. Let's see, this amendment will reduce the minimum exterior setbacks for I-1 and I-2 districts from 50 feet for I-1 districts and 100 feet for residential abutting districts, and 50 feet for non-residential abutting districts for I-2 to 25 feet in both instances. It recently came to staff's attention that when the UDO was adopted in 2009, these setbacks were increased from 25 feet for both and were increased to the current 50-foot setback and 100-foot setback. This change makes development on some already platted industrial parcels impossible because they were originally platted with that 25-foot setback in mind. It was not the city's intent at the time for the UDO to be more restrictive than the previous zoning ordinance. So for that reason, we would prefer to return to the pre-UDO setbacks for industrial districts. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
My question is, why did we do why are we moving just to do a blanket setback? Was there any consideration giving to different setbacks considering the size of the property? Because I don't know that we have any, maybe we do, in the little blue district. I know some of that land got zoned office or commercial, right? But if something industrial wants to go in there, don't we want them to set back a little further?
So this would mainly affect those already existing I-1 and I-2s, which primarily are located on the western side of Independence, the older side. There's some, industrial zone districts just west of the square, sort of along Truman Road in that area, or, along Vista Drive, some of that old industrial park there. So those are really the sites we're talking about. In the the newer part in eastern Independence, there's not as many actual industrial zoned districts, and we presumably in the future, any new industrial development would happen on the, in the BP zoning for business park, business park. And so those would, we're not intending to change those districts at this time. So those would maintain their 50-foot setbacks and then 25 for non-residential abutting districts. So really, we would like to just go back to what had initially been in place. But we're open to other suggestions if that's...
So are we saying that industrial zoning is kind of an old zoning style, and continuing forward, we're going to do more of a BP or commercial type?
Yeah, that would be correct. I should also note that changing these back to 25-foot setbacks would keep us in line with some competing neighboring communities. For instance, Lee's Summit, their planned industrial zones have a 20-foot industrial setback. So we don't feel like this would be, putting us any closer than any competing, development would be. So we feel like it's pretty much in line with standards.
Anybody else have anything to say or weigh in on this? There's just one thing you probably need to know about me. I do not like blanket things. Okay, I think each property is unique, and each property should be, there should be a range. So some of that during the planning stages can be taken advantage of, because I think that anybody that would want to have an industrial, and I understand what you're saying, but anybody who would want to put an industrial building on a new site would want to be as close to the street as they could be. And if they had a nice facade and everything was great, that'd be fine with me, but I'm not sure they all want to do that. So it just bothers me. driving around Independence, there's a lot of things that bother me. And it's because that, we never really think about having the foresight a lot of times about what could happen, because if something's going to happen that we don't want to happen, it's going to be here. It just seems like it's going to be here, and then we have to have a big fight about it. So that's my 2 cents.
The new Dollar General on Chrysler, how far is it away from the street right now?
Well, that's in a C1 district, I believe. That's, has a setback like 15 feet maybe?
Yeah, it's not very much. It's pretty close. Thank you.
And I don't know if you remember, but the building that was there before, there was a car that went through that building.
Yeah,
few
and we
years ago.
demoed it later, yeah.
Well, just saying, 15 feet's kind of close. So can we tell them to pick the building up, move it back a little bit now? No. Okay.
We did.
Well, we approved the zoning. We didn't approve what they were going to do with the building. I'm characteristically quiet. What are you doing? You have nothing to say?
I don't see much of a challenge to this proposed change. It's merely reverting to something that we had in place 10 years ago, and I'm certain the wisdom that brought us to that point was probably well-founded without some profound research, and I trust staff would have brought to our attention if there was some cause to be adversarial to that. And I find that I hear silence in that regard. So I'm at peace, and I'm ready for a motion.
Don't forget the public hearing.
Well, this chairman's not going to make a motion. Somebody else has to make it for him. So if somebody wants to do that, they're
Mr.
welcome.
Chairman, did you close the public hearing?
I don't recall doing that, Stuart. Do you? You don't think I did it?
I think we've done that.
We haven't even opened it up yet, have we?
Okay. We'll do
So I
that
couldn't
and then
close it
close
because I
it.
haven't opened it. All right, well, to keep Stuart happy, we're going to open the public hearing portion of this and ask if anybody here has anything to add to this. Okay, seeing nobody trying to gain the podium here. Is there anyone here who's against this or ask questions? Don't see anybody. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing portion. Go ahead, Billy.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
in the matter of case number 19-175-03, UDO Amendment number 39, industrial setback, I move for the approval of this proposed amendment.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Heather seconds.
Commissioner Ferguson?
Yes.
Commissioner Goldsberry?
Second. Yes.
A second, yes.
That's fine. Commissioner Preston?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley?
Yes.
And Chairman Ashbaugh?
No. But besides that, it is passed. Case number 19-175-03, UDO Amendment number 39, Industrial District Setbacks has passed. Okay, and the next item is election of officers.
We've set aside 15 minutes for speeches if anyone would like to make one.
I yield back my 15 minutes and propose that we adopt the existing slate of officers.
I second.
Can we create a new officer, a new position?
Sergeant at Arms?
Yeah, that sounds good. I nominate Brother Preston here to be Sergeant of Arms, and one of his duties is to take lead to say the Pledge of Allegiance and lead us in that. Can we do that?
I'll have to check into the bylaws.
Oh,
I'm
come
not
on.
sure that's allowed by the,
What's the point of being the chairman if you can't do that?
are we ready for a vote?
Yeah, we're ready. Go ahead.
Commissioner Ferguson?
Yes.
Commissioner Goldsberry?
Yes.
Commissioner Preston?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley?
Yes.
Chairman Ashbaugh?
Abstain. But it's passed again, despite what I wanted. So,
You're only the chair, Mr. Chair.
I know.
Let everybody shoot at you.
Yeah. Is there anything that we need to know? Any roundtable? When's our next meeting?
August 13th, yeah. No meeting, second meeting this month, and so first meeting in August.
Okay. And are the councilmen even interviewing people for this position? or-
I've mentioned several times to the city clerk to put a bug in their ear so I can follow up. And I know Commissioner Wiley, you need to be reappointed if you're interested in that as well, so.
Yeah, I have we've emailed about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there two commissioner available or just one?
There's one, and
There's
then your
one, okay.
reappointment, yeah.
And just to let you know some of my feelings about this, we need someone probably who has real estate experience. We need to get some of that experience on this board, and I don't think we have it right now.
And someone who can always be here.
Other than a degree in real estate, I've not worked in real estate.
So, I mean, we used to have, several years ago, we used to have someone that had that knowledge, and we have not had it for a while, and I think it's something I would like to see. I think we're lacking knowing some of the questions we probably need to ask. So that's one request from me. Do the commissioners have anything for city staff or any comments? Nope. All right.
Minutes from the last meeting? I didn't notice them in my packet. Okay.
I wish to welcome Jordan.
Thank you. Happy to be here, guys.
Thank you.
Well, we'll see how long that lasts. But you're welcome. Thank you for coming and joining the madness here. Okay, since there's no minutes to approve, we'll just say the meeting is adjourned at 6:35 p.m.